This is augforums.com Real Talk, an unfiltered, independent perspective on Acumatica Cloud ERP. My name is Tim Rodman, and I want to mention 3 things in this pre-recorded intro before we get started. First, thank you to our sponsors. Our first sponsor is Paya. Paya offers Acumatica users a suite of industry-leading payment orchestration tools. Far beyond native Acumatica payments, Paya enables EMV, NFC terminals for counter sale. They offer a frictionless customer portal through their click-to-pay solution, and they support most e-commerce platforms and point-of-sale solutions used with Acumatica, such as One Retail and AcuPOS. And best of all, omni-channel reconciliation is available for all of their solutions. Our second sponsor is DataSelf. DataSelf Analytics is a revolutionary reporting solution that enables organizations to make the most informed decisions faster and easier than ever. It uniquely simplifies business intelligence, empowers anyone to build and access dashboards, and delivers critical business insight when and where you need it. Our third sponsor is 24/7 Digitize. 24/7 Digitize is an Acumatica bookkeeping service provider that helps derive the best value from your Acumatica investment by maintaining your books utilizing Acumatica's best practices and guidelines. Please take a minute to support this podcast by clicking each one of the sponsor banners located at augforums.com/sponsors. Our sponsors track clicks, and every click helps to support this podcast. The second thing I'd like to mention is that I'm always looking for victims. I mean guests. If you use Acumatica in any capacity, no matter how small, I'd love to talk with you. Check out augforums.com/podcast and click the link near the top of the page to learn more about being a guest on the podcast. Third and finally, I'd love to see you listed on my Rolodex. Check out augforums.com/Rolodex to find out who else is using Acumatica and read the instructions at the top to see how you can add yourself to the list. All right, that's it for the pre-recorded intro. Let's get started. Today is Friday, January 13th, 2023. And if I had some spooky music, I would play it, but I don't. And this is episode number 106. Paul Gilfoy, 2 Acumatica customer stories from one person. Hey, Paul, thanks for coming on today.
Hey, Tim. Nice to meet you, man. I'm really excited.
Hey, and I think you might be the first person who actually reached out to me. So far, everyone else I have to go track down, but you volunteered to be a podcast victim, so I was thrilled about that. And thanks for your
I'm shocked
email
you say it
and jumping on.
at the beginning of all your podcasts. Yours asking, so I was just assuming everyone was reaching out to you, and I was like, all right, I'll throw my application in.
Well, I'm hoping to get a batch at Summit, coming up in a couple of weeks. Track down a lot of victims. But yeah, thanks for taking the initiative and reaching out. Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, hey, maybe we could start off with your brief origin story. You could give us where you're born, where you grew up, where you went to college, and how you got into this ERP space.
Yeah, I grew up in Washington State. My dad was in the Navy, so we moved around a lot. So I don't really have where I'm from technically. I ended up going to college over on the East Coast at Seton Hall, which is a small Catholic school over in New Jersey. And I just planted roots here. And honestly, I got into IT operations probably around 2015. And just from being on an IT team, I got a lot of experience with Acumatica.
Yeah, so what I'm hearing is kind of by accident. Is that right?
100%, absolute accident, absolutely an accident. Uh,
I don't think I've met anyone yet who's like, I knew I wanted to be an ERP when I grew up, and so I went to college for that.
I mean, it's 100% true. Like, if you work for any company and you start realizing that we have one program that we send emails to clients with, and then we have one program that we're, I don't know, engaging with our website online, like inevitably you end up running into ERP systems, at least something that's going to work cross-dimensionally with everything you do.
Yeah, so maybe start off with that. You're kind of unique in that you've got two customer stories, but let's start off with that first experience in, I think you said 2015. Walk us through maybe a little bit about that company, how you utilize Acumatica, maybe some cool things that you did, whatever you want to highlight.
Absolutely. So I started out with a company called Bungalow 5. They're a high-end furniture company that is centered around Dallas and New York City. And they have just some incredible furniture, really amazing designs. The owners of the company literally went to live out they lived in China for a few years, working with their warehouses to train them on how to make some of these high-end products for them. And with any mid-sized company, they're running into a lot of growing pains. They started searching out for different ERPs. And this is even before I was with the company. They took on Acumatica and had a pretty rough implementation. Uh, it the entire IT team soon left Bungalow 5 after I think a year after their implementation. So I got hired on, and we're just picking up the baggage and just trying to figure out what's going on. And as Acumatica is brand new to me, I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm constantly reading AUG forums. I'm trying to find anything online as I'm searching through it, and more than half of everything I find online are ads about Acumatica. I'm like, great, that's super helpful. That really teaches you how to actually use this product. And then I would open up the user manuals, and they were like pulling teeth about every single granular thing within Acumatica. And so at the end of the day, we were it was a very tough uphill battle initially. And as we were opening up the implementation, Bungalow 5, we had a website that we were selling on. So we were trying to figure out, how do we take orders from the website? We have sales reps that are sending orders in. We would have pop-up events where we would go to big conferences and put up a bunch of our products and sell products there. So we had all these different revenue areas, and just trying to figure out, how do we fit that all together, including shipping. And if anyone has experience with freight shipping and then actually shipping products to customers, all the headaches that come with that.
And you said high-end furniture, so like you're shipping pretty large items there?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're talking about large end large end tables. Let's see here. I think the heaviest of our products was 800 pounds, 900
Oh,
pounds.
wow.
We would
Okay.
have these uh, gorgeous tables that I'm an IT professional. I can't describe the beauty of the furniture to give it credit.
Yeah, I
But
worked on an ERP implementation many years ago for a high end. All they did was, and they're very uh, picky about this. You were not allowed to call it a couch. You could only, it was a sofa. And they would do like, high end stuff for, they were in LA, so a lot of Hollywood stuff. These like custom, sofas that sort of conform to the room kind of thing. And um, I similarly, like, I don't know how to appreciate that stuff. It just looks expensive, I'm like an IKEA guy. But,
But I will say, man, when you hear the owners talk about the labor of love that they put into each and every piece, I feel like that's where I gained an appreciation for it, because I got to see like all the fine details that I, as someone who doesn't see those, miss.
that's cool. So you had an e-commerce website, you had, supply chain stuff going on maybe, what were, did you end up doing any customizations or Acumatic out of the box? How did that part go?
Yeah, honestly, that was one of the toughest part when I first started coming with the company. Again, not knowing anything about Acumatica, the only representation of Acumatica I had was the piece of software that I was looking at, and the implementation team that brought this live had, oh man, I don't even remember, something like 18 different customizations. I forget the exact number. And each of them was customizing. As you know, if you ever start a customization project within Acumatica, you can pick which screen you're going to modify. You can pick what part of the code you're going to modify. And they're modifying the same screen on 6 different customizations. And then
Oh,
they're buying more customizations from the Acumatica marketplace, which we're not even sure if they're interacting amongst each other. And they're having another customization that's supposed to modify their stock item screen so that it can work better with Magento and all these fun things that go into that. And so as we're looking at it, half of the questions I was asking is I was like, is this a problem that Acumatica is facing? Is this sort of how this screen's supposed to work? Or is it a problem somewhere in the code? And so that was a huge labor of love to tear apart the code, learn Acumatica at the same time, and then just try and figure out, okay, we actually have day-to-day business we need to do. How do I answer the requests of my clients, my team members? How do I answer their requests, but then at the same time go, okay, this is a quick solution I can give you, but at the end of the day, we're going to have to tear apart this code, and you might lose functionality in order for us to build it more future focused. And of course, that was always the big balance that we ran into.
yeah, you were really drinking from a fire hose, learning Acumatica with customization on top, and
Drinking from a fire hose, more like drowning and just trying not to die.
getting waterboarded.
Right, right, totally.
Yeah,
Totally.
I've seen it two ways. Like one way is throw you in the fire and learn it that way. The other way is like go through all the training and do it so structured. And honestly, I don't know that the structured training really turns out very well. I feel like the way you did it, as painful as it is, it's the best way to do it. I almost feel like it's the only way to do it. Otherwise, you just waste a ton of time, right? So sure, painful, but as long as you survive it, I think you're in a pretty good spot.
Right, right. And I think the most common post I looked at on AUG forums during these days was how to build a dev environment. And my whole team, I know it seems so obscure, you could probably find that anywhere, but we were building so many small dev environments that were running like on a Windows XP computer, or we would pull something from AWS and build it up in the cloud. And then with a brand new Acumatica instance, we were sort of trying to ask the question of, okay, we need accounting reports for the accounting department. Can I do that with vanilla Acumatica? No customizations. Okay, I can do it with that. Now I'm running into a problem on ours, like where's the disconnect? And sort of playing the back and forth a lot between our dev environment, this Acumatica that we downloaded, and then what we were experiencing day to day.
Oh yeah, that's tedious, but yeah, I don't know any other way to do it, right? Peeling back the layers of the onion. I'm curious, when you came out the other end of that, um, did you keep more than 50% of the customizations or less than 50% of the customizations?
Yeah, good question. Good question. The One of the biggest lessons I ended up learning is when you're I, when you're speaking with management and they have a request, you have to be able to say like, okay, we can build this customization for you, but there will be baggage along with it, right? And it's I think if you my guess, my absolute guess is if you constantly say yes to every request, you end up with, I don't know, 23 customizations. And so I think it was a lot of a back and forth. I think we at best deleted 8, and we got the number down. I think it was 13 when I finally left. And at least 3 or 4 of those were from Acumatica Marketplace. So the number of home built customizations was less than 10, right? Still, like if I encounter any client that has 10 home built customizations, my next request is why, right? Is it really, really necessary? And I don't know. And long story short, uh, all this time going through the code, trying to figure out what's best. The lesson I learned the most is even if you lose functionality, use the vanilla, the plain, uncustomized Acumatica. Do it to the absolute limit of your capacity. And then when you finally say, okay, there's something small we need to add, that's where you go for a customization. But I think sometimes if we pull the customization card first, we end up with so much baggage. And anyone ever have to go through an update with a bunch of customization packages? Isn't that just a wonderful experience?
That's really good advice. And there are a couple things there. One is you asked, is this really needed? And something's tickling my brain. I'm gonna double check, but I think Haley Hicks and I talked about this on a previous episode. A similar concept, just about how you raise that question, because you could raise it in a like, "Why do you need this?"
Sure,
Or you could raise it in a
totally.
like, "I'm curious. Why? Tell me more." Right? And that's a real skill to genuinely be curious about it, which I think most of the time you are, but then also communicate that you're curious about it and you're not just trying to save yourself some work, right? Because you really are you're thinking about upgrades, you're thinking about, the real impact on the business of having to customize. But a lot of times it just comes across as I'm lazy and I don't want to do the work.
100%. And I honestly, I feel like I accidentally stumbled into this reality just because I'm naturally curious. I love to ask people and understand the whole process. I don't know anything about CPAs, and so I'm super fascinated when they start throwing out terms like APGL and AR, and I had no idea coming from an IT professional what that meant. Um, but absolutely, I think if we have that natural curiosity, be a little kid just in your heart and just want to figure everything out and learn about it, I feel like that helps us so much when we're tearing apart ERP systems and learning about systems and processes. And I don't know, I feel like sometimes we're so married to our process. Every business that I've ever talked with has always say our processes are very standard within our industry. We really don't have anything strange going on. Honestly,
Right, right.
plain Acumatica should do 90% of our work, right? But at the end of the day, every business has weird processes, and you're just, why do you do it that way? Oh, we've always done it that way. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah,
I
and
don't
I
know.
think the other side of it too is that they have weird processes, and that's what gives them a competitive advantage. If they did it the way everyone else did, they might not be in business for very long, right? So there's value.
That's
Yeah.
a good point. Very, very good point.
I love your "be a little kid in your heart" line. That's a great line. I love that because I think it does come across. People can sense that you're genuinely curious and you're not just, trying to sound like you know a better way. That's really good advice.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think the worst part is, though, as you become more and more professional and people expect amazing results for you, uh, letting them know that, hey, you're just still the curious kid who's asking a lot of questions is uh, really okay. Like it's good to, I don't know, bring our guard down sometimes. We come to, I can't, how many meetings have you gone to where everyone has uh, a, a baggage and I want to make sure I have a really good idea and I look good in front of everyone? But obviously that's getting a little off topic.
Oh, that's another really good point, though. Yeah, salaries really play a big role on that, right? The higher your salary is, the more you're supposed to come with something to the table, and not ask questions, right? Yeah, that's great. This is good stuff. I like this. Yeah, other thing I wanted to ask you on the customizations is 80/20 rule. So like, how much of that was going on in your mind where you're like, I mean, okay, so I'll just tell you my own story. Like, I'm totally like a computer guy, right? So I come into the ERP world initially just kind of with this concept of we're just going to code everything, like we can basically just make the computer run the entire business and there'll be no need for people anymore. That's just sort of my geeky computer mindset. But I just learned over the years, a business is not about a process. A business is about people, and the system is there to help people make decisions. It's not there to replace people. And so, because of that, there's always stuff outside the system. And that's where the 80/20 rule comes in. It's like, all right, is this the 80% that's like standard stuff that's just going to run through and it's worth automating? Or is this the weird 20% that, like, you know what? Just do it in Excel, do it in email. It's really better served there because of the weirdness of it. How much of that was at play when you're going through those customizations?
I love that you mentioned 80/20 analysis. That was a very common phrase within our IT team. We were talking about that up and down. Um, yeah, that's always hard to figure out. I love I forget where I saw this, but the 5-step design process of make the requirements less dumb, uh, try very hard to delete every part of the process, simplify and optimize, and then you start to accelerate and automate, right? But people often go straight to automate or straight to let's get it done faster, accelerate, without asking the question of are these does this make sense? Like, does this tool actually make sense? Is there any way we could not, can we delete this step? Like, what would happen? And I don't know. Again, it's being willing to ask dumb questions and sometimes look like the guy who's asking dumb questions, but a willingness to ask those questions to really optimize and find out what is that core 20%. I feel like I can think of a lot of examples for this. Like we were doing a very complicated return policy when it came to a lot of our clients, and the case management screen had been so overly customized that it felt like at least a third of our staff was dealing with the complicated return process. And I don't know, I run into this all the time of, okay, what's that like core 20%? But as much as I wanted to reduce that process, I absolutely understand that the return process and assigning almost a third of the staff to deal with that, you're actually engaging with real clients and giving them a really, really positive relationship with the company so that they have a greater experience and they continue to grow in a relationship. So that was one of those times where I came in saying, we need to get rid of this process, reduce. And I ended up being wrong because it actually brought so much benefit to the company to have a real connection with some of our clients.
So you came in thinking, this is the 20% or maybe like the 20% of value, and it turns out it's in the 80% of value. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, that's another benefit of being curious. You don't come in like, you just you adapt. That's really good. I like that.
So wrapping up the Bungalows 5 side, we ended up having to do a huge website rebuild. We were able to build. This is not me. This is one of the devs on our team built a best-selling report when it came to some of the sales within our company, and then of course we ran into a lot of issues when it came to warehouse management and trying to figure out how do we move all this inventory between places. But at the end of the day, after all the struggles, we were able to drastically reduce the customization complexity and in the same time update us from, I think we were in 2018 and we were updating straight to 21 R1. I think that was the process. We ended up having to pay a little bit of subscription fee to Acumatica for having an outdated license, or pay a support fee, I think it is, if you have an outdated license, in order to finally get us across the finish line of the update.
Do you remember what you used for your e-commerce on that new website build?
It's still Magento.
Magento. Okay.
Yeah. And again, that's a whole another IT story, but it was really clear that when Magento was first built, it the website stack that it was built on, it was not working. We even brought in like a bunch of contractors to try and fix it and find different ways. And they tried a million different ways to update the website, and it kept crashing. It got so bad that I was constantly being woken up at like 2 a.m. by a text on my phone saying the website's down. And so I started automating scripts just to run on the website that if it goes down, just restart it and then I can keep sleeping. So like this was
Wow.
literally just how we were trying to survive, right? Um, and at the end of the day, the tough pill to swallow was just we're going to have to do a whole website rebuild, plain and simple.
Wow. Interesting.
So yeah, but maybe that's a description for another time.
So before you've got two Acumatica customer stores, before we
Yeah.
go to the next one, any other thoughts on the Bungalow 5? I really like the customization thoughts there.
Yeah, I really think that's what it boils down to. Being able to be curious enough to ask a lot of questions and understand process. Um, Absolutely, our goal should be reducing complexity always. And at the end of the day, I think the being dropped into the fire of learning Acumatica gave me such a deep sense with to understand the tool of Acumatica, um, that it helped improve the whole company overall. But obviously, that's not something I would encourage everyone for. Like the best way to learn about Acumatica is have it constantly blow up, right? No, it's like so. At the end of the day, we brought a little stability, we reduced complexity, and we were able to upgrade in the whole process. And so, I still love my days with Bungalow 5, but I have most recently moved on.
Before you go there, I had one more Bungalow 5 thing I want to ask you. You mentioned in your email to me that you were actually tearing apart code, and so that's why you have engineer in your title now. I'm just curious on that. Were you actually the line am not willing to cross is actually spinning up a Visual Studio environment. Did you actually go that far, or were you just looking at code in customization projects? I wanted to ask.
I have yet to be able to spin up a Visual Studio environment. Um, any IT professional listening, I come from the operations side. I was like a system admin. That was my title. And I have 100% accidentally became a developer. And the only reason I've become a developer is the hours and hours of which I was tearing through code and then writing small automation scripts and eventually building larger and larger applications. I'm still surprised that this happened. Now, that on the Acumatica Visual Studio, I use Visual Studio Code, which is
Yeah.
a reduced version of Visual Studio, I guess, IDE, whatever you want to call it. Anyways, but one of the things I'm a little disappointed with Acumatica from a development side is every time I go and read development blogs or development tutorials, all of them assume you already have a Visual Studio instance of Acumatica set up and running. And every time I've tried to do this, it has failed at some level. And I end up just, okay, I'm going to build it up in AWS, modify the code in there, and then just do this through customization projects. And I don't know, maybe I'm just not at the level of some of the guys who are building this, but I have had a lot more success just using Visual Studio Code and bringing customizations through customization projects.
This is a great answer because I'm totally in sync with you. So if I want to make sure I'm understanding right. So basically your version of compile is publishing a customization project that just has code in it. There's no DLL, there's no like anything else.
100%. You got it.
Okay. I'm totally the same. And it's not a question. I've reached this conclusion. The reason I don't cross that line is not because I can't. And you could too. If you really wanted to pour the time into it, you could get an environment spun up. The reason I don't cross the line is because if I cross that line, I know that I'm now truly a developer because there's so much else going on in the Visual Studio from a debugging standpoint, from a I don't even know what it is. I know that it's a totally different world. And that's just not a skill set I want to spend 3 years building because I know if I do, I could do it and I think you could do it too. If I do, I'm going to lose my connection to the business. And now my skill set is only good for taking requirements and coding them. And I want to be in the requirements process, right? So it's not a
100%.
bridge that I
100%.
couldn't cross. It's a bridge that I'm not willing to cross. And because I recognize it's a big bridge. So I don't think it's a bad thing. And I'm with you. I wish there was more in this low code, no code, or even in this code, but not Visual Studio Code realm. I think that'd be a great thing to try to encourage more of this information around people like us who are not going to touch Visual Studio, but we want to do as much as we can without touching Visual Studio.
I mean, I have loved Acumatica started releasing coffee and codes. I have really loved those, and it's really encouraging hearing other devs talk on there. But at the end of the day, I love Python, the coding in Python. That's a programming language. Um, Coding in C sharp is perfectly fine. I just don't want to do it. I hate
And
to
it's
say it, but
different. It's a difference between I don't know the technical terms, but my term is a scripting language like Python or PHP and a language that gets compiled like C sharp.
yep.
It's a whole another level of complexity, right? A different way of thinking. Classes and yeah.
Even when we were dealing with the Magento and building on a CentOS machine, everything I was doing regarding back end or front end, I was able to accomplish with Python. I was able to accomplish a little bit with PHP. And I guess that's me leaning into my strengths. I feel like half of my job sometimes is I'm just reading instruction manuals on how to do things and then just repeat, right? And I don't know. It's just a tough pill to swallow. I 100% agree with you, Tim. If I was to lean into that, I don't know, you lose access to quickly writing up a script and having it impact the business. Right now, in my company, we're trying to send out a whole bunch of engagement letters through an API connection with something like DocuSign, right? With a application called PandaDocs. And it's just so much easier to code something up in Python where I'm sending API requests to PandaDocs to create a letter that needs to be signed by our customers and then email that out through Acumatica. And just doing that through the API connections is good enough for me. It does the job.
I'm totally with you. Yeah, no, I'm yeah, I'm totally with you. And man, maybe we could yeah, I'm not gonna have the time to do this, but if we had all the time in the world, we could do like, some kind of live broadcast where we just look for more people with that mindset and just look for those examples, like the coffee and code, but for scripting and API people like us.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. So much of my job can get done through APIs, then I'm not going to tear apart Acumatica code then.
Well, that's cool. I'm glad I asked you that, kindred spirit there. I'll let you move on then to you've got a second customer story. So go ahead and set us up for that one.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was most recently hired by a company called Price Quebeca. Price Quebeca is a CPA firm that is out of Dallas. They excel with their tax audits and 401k audits. They really specialize when it comes to 401k audits, and they have just a great practice. And the partners within Price Quebeca were really looking at the future of the industry of CPA firms. And at the end of the day, they are realizing one, to bring efficiency to their business within Price Quebeca when they're doing 500 audits a year and 1,000 tax projects and fill in the blank. They needed to bring efficiency into house, and instead of having so many different applications, they were looking at expanding into and getting an ERP for Price Quebeca and some of our sister companies. And so they shopped around for quite some time. They ran into Acumatica. I believe the partners of the company went to Acumatica Summit during COVID. That was 2022 in January, I think. And they were really impressed with it there. So they started looking to expand into Acumatica space, and that's where they reached out to me, and I was able to come and join along the team. And we, with brand new, fresh eyes, got to ask this question after experiencing a botched implementation with a whole lot of complexity. We got to come to this question of how do we want to implement Acumatica for our firm. And honestly, we did it in a modular approach. If there's any IT professionals listening, instead of doing like a waterfall type design, we went straight to like an agile, really accelerated modular approach to bringing Acumatica into house. And so what that meant was initially we just, my boss and I joke, we just launched F100 within our company, meaning we did AP, GL, and AR. We just launched those. We effectively were like replacing QuickBooks with Acumatica. And honestly, step one for most companies, that's super easy to do. You can do that in just a couple weeks, bring over all your transactions, and bam, you're live with Acumatica.
I'll say if you're coming off of QuickBooks, yeah. If you're coming off an ERP, it's hard. You can't do that. But yeah, yes, absolutely. If you can do it, absolutely.
Yeah, one of our CPA clients is looking at coming off of Sage, and oh gosh, anyways, there's a lot of fun stuff. A lot of fun stuff. Anyway, so we launched the F100 piece within Acumatica. And after that was stabilized, we're using it on a daily basis. The next question was, okay, we need to start looking at our project module. And again, we were deciding whether we wanted to do the actual project module or cases when it comes to dealing with our tax projects or 401k audits. And we ended up going with implementing the project module, in particular because we work with a lot of construction companies that have similar project modules within their industry. And so we thought, even though sometimes cases is a little bit easier to implement, by us learning the project module, by us drinking our own Kool-Aid, we can actually help a lot more of our clients with their construction modules within their ERP systems. Make sense?
And we haven't said this yet, I don't think, but you are a customer that's also looking to be a VAR or is a VAR.
Yeah, you got it. So after we have learned Acumatica for so long as a customer, we have now tentatively, we're taking steps into the VAR space right now. And we are coming from a perspective where we want to help bring efficiency to some of our customers. We want to help our customers have meaningful data. And man, we have one story right now where someone implemented an ERP system. One of our clients implemented an ERP system in March. And the next year during tax season, they still don't have everything reconciled for the last year because their implementation, whoever assisted them, came in, got you your ERP, left, see you guys later. And now they're sort of left holding the bags and they have no idea what to do. And so for us, we just want to be able to help business owners have meaningful data that they can make day-to-day decisions on for some of our construction clients, they'll say things along the lines of, we're making money. I'm not 100% sure how we're doing it because there's some months where I feel like we're way in the hole and then next month we're way ahead. So it's bringing meaningful, on-demand, timely data, I think has been so instrumental within our business, within Price Quebeca, that we are really interested in sort of entering this VAR space, consulting space, and helping implement that for some of our clients.
So I want to come back to that. Before we get there, though, let's talk a little bit more about you as a customer. I'm very interested in how it's going the projects route, because that's always been my impression that for like a professional services firm, projects are maybe a little too heavy, that cases would be much simpler because it's more just about communicating and being more flat, attributes on a case or something like that. Maybe tell us, maybe it's too early on to really say how well it's gone, but yeah, talk us through some of like the good things, some of the bad things about going with projects as a professional services firm.
Yeah, I, I definitely liked cases, and I I think you're absolutely right. It sometimes is easier to implement. There's a couple reasons we decided to go for projects. One, and I mentioned this already, we were forward thinking, okay, if we got to the point where we implement Acumatica for our customers, most of our customers will probably use the project module because they may be in construction or manufacturing or things along those lines. And so it was a little bit of drinking our own Kool-Aid and making sure that we are familiar with this tool. Um, the other one was, gosh, we liked the fact, well, I don't know if I could 100% say. We liked the fact we could automate a couple of the processes when it came to sending out emails, receiving maybe a document from a customer, and then changing a status and having that affect a task. But at the end of the day, you could probably do that on the case module as well.
How's billing gone? Is billing working well?
Yeah, absolutely. So we the billing rules. I like that module. I think it's really cool. We've played around with a lot of different billing rules, whether we're doing it based on completion, some things based on retainage, and then some are just based on whether the project is complete. And then we even have some billing rules where as soon as the project is created, we create the bill for it. So I think that was really helpful. The other thing that is very helpful as well is we use time clocks. When we are assigning time to a project, we have that implemented within the employee time activity screen. And by assigning that to a project, in case we are doing tax consulting, we can bill a client based on hourly of the time that's put straight into that project. Can you actually do that on cases? I never tried to tear that apart.
Yes, I believe you can. Yeah, you can. When you say time clock, do you actually mean like a start and stop button, or do you
Yeah,
mean?
so that was actually a fun story. Um, so we started using the employee time activities, and the biggest question I was looking and searching a lot online was, does Acumatica have a feature to have a running time clock that you can start and stop as necessary when you're on a project or a case or anything that you're working on? And the only clock that they had was in the field service piece, I believe. And we experimented a little bit with thinking, okay, could we use the field service piece? But it just came with too much, I guess, bloat, things we wouldn't need. And so we, cut out field service. We go, okay, we're not actually going to a client and doing work on site regularly. And so how can we use the employee time activity screen to assign minute to minute time to clients? And again, asking the curious question, I even asked the question of, can we just have a stopwatch on people's desk that they can start and stop time and then put in 8 minutes manually? And if things go wrong, that's of course a possibility. But that was where I started bringing into a customization project. It was when we finally brought all the requirements down to understand the core functionality. We brought a customization project and added some time fields within the employee time activity screen. So let me see, what did I name them? So they have a time spent on the employee time activities screen. I added some progress, start time, progress, finish time. And what that effectively does is every time you add a time into the employee time activities screen, it sets a date time for your progress start time. And then once you hit pause, it sets a date time for the progress end time. It calculates the difference between those, and it just adds it to the time spent field. It was pretty simple, but implementing it and making sure that our users were using it was actually a fun process on its own.
Yeah, that all comes into like user interface, like People like it. I don't know that people ever like time entry, but how's that going?
So that was a fun process that we got to implement because the biggest lesson I always have learned within IT is launch early and sometimes like before you're 100% ready, like when you're still slightly embarrassed about the product, get it out to your users because all that to say we created this time clock with the employee time activities, but when I was talking with the partners, we thought that employees would enter time through a gi, and through a GI, they would be able to do a business activity to hit a button that starts a time, and then they do their work. And when they're done, hit another button. But at the end of the day, the employees hated that feature. They preferred just going to employee time activities, starting their clock on one tab, jumping over to another tab, doing all their work, coming back, and then hitting the stop button. And that was one of those where working with end users early would help reduce a lot of workload because we realized the things end users actually want to use. And so that's where we initially built it, thinking that we would lean heavily into GIs and business events to start and stop clocks using the what's the thing on the right side of GIs where it pops out the
The side
sidebar?
panel.
Yeah, side panel. Using one of the side panels, but the end users just preferred being on the screen. And so that's where we leaned a little bit more into the customization. We just added some buttons at the top of the employee time activity screen for start, pause, stop, and to be able to, again, start, stop time, pause it if you need to. My next goal on this will actually be to incorporate some colors so that I could have a green is your time is running, a yellow is your time is paused, and red is your time is finished. But I've noticed that incorporating color into forums is a little bit more complicated. There's a couple posts about how to do that. And so that's one of those, it's on the shelf. I'll play with that later.
Well, great advice on I'll call it the minimum viable product approach. Yeah, get that in the hands. I also like that because you're just setting low expectations from the beginning. People just know, oh, it's not done. Yeah, so they don't expect as much. I'm curious on that because I think a lot of people are interested in clocks and maybe could benefit from your code or hiring you to implement it on manufacturing production orders or some other places. When you mentioned pause and stop, uh, is there a way, I get up to go use the restroom, can I pause without then restarting a new activity, or is it always creating a new activity?
Yeah, it's on the same activity. So your pause is the current activity that you're working on.
And you mentioned you're recording the start and end time, and when you pause, it's recording the end time. So when you restart it, how do you how do you handle that? Do you have a new start time? I love talking details on this.
Yeah, I could open up the code. We could open up GitHub and look at this. But all that to say, yeah, when you hit the pause button, it takes the difference between your start and stop time, throws that over to the time spent field. And then when you hit unpause, it resets it. The start time goes back to the current time that you hit unpause at, and the end time is erased. The time clock
Okay.
starts running, and when you hit the pause button again, it auto fills. Um, we
Ah,
did run
so it's
into
just
actually
adding.
something interesting.
It's like a
Say again?
running total in the
Exactly,
time spent.
100%.
Okay.
We did run into a really interesting problem where what happens if someone pauses their clock and then decides to stop? And or what happens if someone stops a clock, realizes they made a mistake, and wants to take it off of hold or put it back on hold and then restart the clock? So there was a couple of those smaller use cases that we put contingencies within the code in order to handle that. But all of that was handled. I guess this is low code on the business logic of the employee time activities screen.
Cool. So then one other one I want to ask you is there's like time spent versus time billed, I would assume. So let's say your clock calculated 9 minutes and 45 seconds. Is there some logic that rounds up or rounds down to the next billable increment?
No, that was the we always round down. So it's taking the difference of minutes. And that was a little bit of a business decision within our company, asking, okay, if we spend 9 minutes and 55 seconds, do we just want to round up to 10 minutes? And the only problem with that is if you constantly pause and unpause your clock, you can start getting minutes for no time. And so we just decided, let's just always round down. And then, our customers get the benefit of one less minute billed. And at the end of the day, when we're looking at the billing, we run the billing rules within the project. It calculates the labor rate, the billing rate, and comes out with a whole sum for that. It's up to the partners then at that point to whether that's going to be a write up or write down, and to their own discretion based on the customer.
So I'm still missing then if it's billed on the time activity itself, is there any rounding happening or the rounding happens during the billing rule process?
The On the time activity, it will be the difference of minutes specifically. So
Okay.
even if
So there is
you're,
rounding. You're
yes,
chopping
correct.
off the seconds basically.
You got it. You got it.
Okay. And then there could be further rounding to like, all right, we're going to take 11 minutes down to 8 minutes versus up
You got it.
to 16 minutes. Okay. Got it.
Yeah. But obviously
Okay.
that takes place at the billing rule. Yeah.
Well, that makes sense. And I think that's actually a perfect segue to, I don't know if you can, are you able to go a little bit past the top of the hour? What's your
Yeah,
next
we're
meeting
good.
date?
We're good.
I think it's a perfect segue to you as a VAR. And this is my observation of CPA firms. And I'm just going to set you up and you can agree or disagree and then take it from there. Um, a traditional Acumatica VAR, in my opinion, is primarily a selling organization. It's all about selling, implementing enough to get live and say you're implemented, and then going to the next one. That's just what you have to do to survive. A CPA firm, in my opinion, tends to have more of a service mindset, whereas, and I think it's for a couple reasons. One, it's like an ethical CPA thing that they're not wanting to be too sales heavy. They want to just do what makes sense for the client and not just sell something that doesn't make sense. And then second, it's just the billing nature of CPA firms that they're just service minded. It's all about hours, service mindset. They're not really built on selling stuff. Have you found that to be the case there? And why I think it's a good segue is this whole conversation about rounding the hours and everything is really kind of your core product. It's not margins on selling software.
Yeah. You 100% hit it. I have encountered more bad implementations than I've encountered good implementations. And so that was where within our business, we wanted to be able to be a resource to the companies that we serve and almost be like one of the back office staff for them. We want to be able to efficiently help with Acumatica, help business owners get that meaningful data, and then make sure that they love the product. If they're not getting 150% out of Acumatica, what are you doing? Like, why are you paying the money for it? And that's really where our business is leaning towards. I guess it's more leaning towards a consultant side. Um, I don't know if we're ever going to be a golden VAR partner of moving lots of software, because at the end of the day, I really prefer the low, go slow approach. Make sure we love it. Make sure we're getting full value out of this ERP, and make sure that it's adding so much value to the owners of the company that they couldn't imagine a time not having you with them on staff.
And you could do that because you have that service mindset. You're getting paid for your time. It's not like you need to rush someone through a sales cycle because so much of your business is built on margins.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. And honestly, I can't imagine that is a hard struggle when it comes to a lot of ours. Even at the botched implementations that I've spoken about, I bet most of those probably had a communication breakdown at some point. And so it was really I don't know. Sometimes we like mudslinging at a VAR. It was their fault, or it was the uh, I don't know, IT department's fault, or. But at the end of the day, if we can keep a solid communication, help bring efficiency with a product, then how is that not a huge benefit to a company?
That makes sense. And okay, so there were two questions that I just lost. Let's see. Two questions I want to ask you. Oh, yes. So both of these might be above your pay grade, and I don't want to get you in trouble, but if you're comfortable responding, respond. If you're not, just say, I'm not sure. So first one is do you know if you would take on an Acumatica customer even if you are not the VAR of record for them?
Doing consulting for them, absolutely, no problem. Yes.
I love that. Second thing is, do you know if you are a traditional VAR or did you look into the new service provider program that I'm still not sure if it really exists or if it's just a press release?
I don't know. I haven't heard about the service provider program. That's really interesting.
And actually, I want to make sure I got the name right. So I actually had Wayne Schultz on to talk about it. We did a podcast episode on it, and I don't even remember if I have the name right. Yeah, Acumatica Service Provider Program, and I'll send you a link to it. It's episode 102, and there's a press release from October 10th. But with any ERP publisher, you can never assume that there's anything more than just a press release. I'm not saying there isn't, but I'm not saying there is either. So I'm curious to learn more about that at Summit. I feel like it could. My understanding is it's basically a way to have a contractual relationship with Acumatica, be able to open support cases, things like that. So you're still paying to be a partner, but you're not getting margins. So kind of
Understood.
interesting.
Understood. Yeah. So the our segment of the business, we have Price Quebec Consulting. We have a handful of clients that are running through this, and at the end of the day, I want to help partner with business if they are using Acumatica and maybe they got the short end of the stick, and for whatever reason they might have not had a successful implementation, and they want to make sure that they're getting 150% of the value out of the product. Because at the end of the day, I'm an IT professional. I've looked into Acumatica. I've read a lot of the code. Uh, I am still impressed with this product. It's still a really good product. As of course, everything has its shortcomings, but I really think this product can help give a lot of meaning to business owners. And yeah. We are absolutely right now. We are primarily helping customers who already have Acumatica. We are in the process. We have two clients right now that are interested in launching Acumatica, and so we'll be helping them probably in the next 3 to 6 months.
I love that. Actually, what here you reminded me right now of as I'm looking it up is Scott Rutkowski, if I'm remembering how to pronounce his name. He What reminds me of it is you have a very much a customer mindset. You're thinking like a customer and wanting to um, do what a customer is looking for. And Scott actually worked for an Acumatica customer. They spun off a VAR practice owned by that Acumatica customer, not even like a CPA firm or anything. But
Wow,
he talked very similarly on that episode about the way you talk, wanting to just kind of fit in wherever needed, just share information, that kind of a mindset, service mindset, not selling mindset. Reminds me a lot of him.
nice. Episode 85. I'm 100% listening to that after this.
Well, that's cool. Another question I wanted to ask you is: was there a Dallas connection between the Bungalow 5 Dallas location and the uh, Price Quebeca being in Dallas?
100% accident. Um, I actually we just flew down to Dallas where I was working with the team down there, and I completely forgot to go down to the Bungalow 5 location and then say hello to everyone on site. I feel terribly guilty about it, so I hope no one on here tells people from Bungalow 5 I was in Dallas. I would totally have gone and said hello. They have a great team there.
So you're in New Jersey, but
Yes.
Price Quebec is based out of Dallas. Are they mostly focused on regional clients or national?
Yeah. So they have a lot of different segments of their business. Their tax clients are primarily around Dallas, DFW area, Dallas Fort Worth area. Their accounting projects very similar because we're sending accountants on site to those businesses to help, maybe close their books for the month or the quarter of the year, right? But uh, Price Quebec also has an absolutely fire 401k audit program. They have built their own software for this. They brought in machine learning into it, which I love diving into that. And their product is called Autire. They do sell this 401k auditing software to other CPA firms right now, but Autire gives them the ability, because they are using automation and machine learning, they've been able to cut the price of a 401k audit. I'm not the expert, but let's just say in half.
Okay.
So it has been really incredible. That side of the business has grown so much that we now have growing pains because of it. And that was what led them initially to Acumatica as bringing some automation into the business, to help accelerate the 401k auditing practice.
Very interesting. Is that Ottire machine learning, like a lot of it around fraud detection and discovering anomalies, that kind of thing?
We'll have to bring on one of the partners to talk about
Oh,
it.
yeah.
He explained it to me this last time when I came on site, and I was having so much fun picking his brain all about it. And man, you know, we all, maybe not we all, let's say 90% of folks have 401ks that they're putting money into, right? You are required to have your 401k audit if it's more than 100 employees every year, I believe, right? And so my question to him was, okay, let's just be honest. How many of those 401ks have errors, right? We're talking 20%, right? 10%, 10%. Not they're really solid with our money. They're not messing things up. And the partner, his name was Brian. He laughed at me. He was like, "Are you kidding? I think 80% of the 401ks that we have that run through our testing find errors." And then he turned to another employee at the table and said, "How many of the 401ks do you think have errors when we run them through?" And she goes, "When I do it, 90, 95%." And I'm just going, are you kidding? Why am I putting money into this if there's constantly errors? But he did, he did encourage us that sometimes the errors are, most of the errors are to your benefit, like they're putting maybe too much money into it, but because they have to account for every single dollar, it still makes me a little uncomfortable.
Interesting. Wow.
Yeah, it's really a fantastic practice. It's a lot of fun to dive into.
Well, and I thought it was interesting you said that it's that growth that kind of really led you into ERP and looking at more automation. That's cool. That's very
Yeah,
cool.
absolutely, absolutely. And I
Well,
mean,
hey,
I go ahead, go ahead.
no, go ahead. Keep going.
I was just saying, like, what I absolutely love about Acumatica, and I remember I said the 5-step design process, of making sure you reduce the complexity and reduce the number of steps the best you can, and then start to simplify, optimize, and automate. But I really like Acumatica as a tool to do that. If you're willing to go through the hard things of asking those dumb questions and trying to delete steps, once you really get a solid process, automation within Acumatica is awesome. It is so much fun. I'm so impressed right now. The partners have uh, Acumatica is new to them, right? But us working together and me showing what I'm doing, and we do a lot of back and forth training. That they'll always ask questions on how I did something. They are all now building their own business events constantly. They're all constantly doing email notifications. They're all building GIs, and they haven't gotten to report designer yet. That's a lot of fun, but they're all building GIs that are giving them real time data and automating so many steps. And I'm very impressed with the ability within just the Price Quebec staff in order to pick up a tool, learn it, and get massive value out of our business.
That makes me think I've got to ask, since it's a CPA firm, they've got to love Excel. Is Velixo involved at all?
No, not at all. Tell me.
Really?
So yeah, what is this?
Okay, you gotta schedule a demo with Gabrielle from Velixo. Just put that on your calendar. Actually, I'll send you an email to connect you. Anytime there's an accountant involved, they're gonna like Excel, and
100%, absolutely.
Velixo is the way to talk to Acumatica through Excel, basically. Yeah.
Wow, cool. It's so funny. I literally just finished sending a message to our whole company saying, "Listen, guys, if anyone is solving a problem on a regular basis with spreadsheets, tell me. We're going to make sure that Acumatica can do this within the GI." But that is really, really interesting.
All right, Gabrielle, if you're listening, I want commission on this. No, I think it makes a lot of sense. I'll connect you to him by email.
Cool. That's awesome. That's awesome.
I actually don't want commission on this. It's okay. Well, cool. Hey, Paul, any other closing thoughts? Very cool angle to be able to share from two customer perspectives, but anything that jumps out at you that we might have missed that you want to share?
Any company that is going through Acumatica growing pains, there's light at the end of the tunnel. I'm telling you, my whole team was constantly reading AUG forums when we were drowning, trying to figure out Acumatica, and we got so much hope from it. And there is light at the end of the tunnel. You can get massive value out of Acumatica. And if you're maybe implementing, go low, go slow. Take it module by module. Just launch a module, see if you can incorporate it into your business, and then add another module and repeat the steps. Rinse and repeat. Yeah.
Do you feel like on the drowning side there was a very identifiable turning point, or was it more like the light sort of slowly dawns? Or was it, was it like I'm in the cave and I open the door and now boom, sunlight. I feel confident now and not like I'm drowning, or was it more gradual?
Slow, very gradual. And I would say it was even gradual on each like module. Uh, I initially got really, really good at import scenarios. And so once I felt like I mastered an import scenario, I don't know, it gave me confidence. I was like, all right, this product works. We can do this. And then, of course, if you learn import scenarios, you're learning GIs and reports and different things. But still, I would be like 6 months into the company, and I would still have to go to the logistics purchasing department and go, can you just show me what you do? I just want to sit in this chair and watch you work, so that by watching you, I'm learning how do we handle these POs? How do we handle shipping containers and different things like that? And then I don't know. Over time, as I was watching the people how they were trained to use the product, I would go back, use it, and then do the tinkering thing. What happens if we change this? And then learning through that.
So it sounds maybe a little bit like two steps forward, one step back sometimes.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And honestly, coming from that approach, I was not able to find out if I couldn't I couldn't tell if something was on fire, because I was taking my sense of truth of how you should use it based on how the employees were using it.
That makes sense. Well, hey, I'm glad you survived. I'm glad it sounds like you're having a lot of fun with what you do now. And thanks again so much for coming on to talking about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Tim, anytime, man. I really enjoy this. And hey, if you're going to be at Summit, I look forward to meeting you in person.
So I will be there, and let's definitely meet up.
Cool. Awesome.
All right. Well, that's it for now. We'll catch you on the next episode of AUGforums.com Real Talk. Thanks for listening, and take care.